Petri to me and to Properman. Well, I started playing hockey with Petri when I was 10 years old. The joke I say on stage is he's a really good person, but he had a really shot. He's like the wounded duck, those hockey players know what I'm talking about. No, I've known Petri a very long time, very smart individual, very even keel. I have issues with sometimes anxiety and stress and all that great stuff. He's very calm and cool, even though he feels it too. So he's always been a very good person in my life to help balance me out. Incredibly good songwriter. He throws like I say, all these Properman songs. Most of them he threw the chords down for. I'd go over top of it, and the band would come in later and make it what it is. Without the band, there's nothing. It's just a process. But Petri, because it was his job in the beginning to do this thing. 7 years later, he's putting a suit on every Saturday and getting on stage, and he always says it before we go on. So he's a really interesting guy. He looks at us and goes, "We're good looking guys," and he's dead serious. It's definitely a midlife crisis thing. Like, some dudes, they get in the car and they're we sit in that little alleyway before we play, and it's like we think we're playing Madison Square Garden. Everyone's hugging and high-fiving, and every time Petri's like, "Yeah, we're really good looking guys." And I don't know why he says that, but that's Petri.
We're here with Petri. Finally.
Hello, yes.
Hello. When Jason talks about you, he talks about Finnish heritage.
Yes.
Esa-Tikkanen. He says, "Hey, he knows Esa-Tikkanen." That's the first thing he says that all the time on stage about you.
Yeah.
Like born in Finland?
Born in Sweden.
In Sweden.
Yeah, and so my parents Finnish. My dad and mom happened to be living in Sweden at the time. My dad was a contract welder, so
Yeah.
he was working at a special project, and so I was born there, and so that's, if you know anything about Finland, Swedish kind of dynamics.
Mostly the hockey.
I'm the black sheep, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because, I
Okay.
love to bust the Swedes' chops.
Makes sense.
And, and vice versa. So, but it's a friendly kind of, so yeah, born in Sweden, and my parents emigrated to Canada. I grew up in Kitimat, same as Jason.
Yeah. How old were you when you moved to Kitimat?
Oh, that was in '74. So I would have been a year and a half, and my mom was pregnant with my brother.
Yeah.
7 months. I can't believe they let her on the plane, but I think back then it was probably a little more loosey-goosey on on the rules. And,
yeah.
But I think they told me this story, and I don't know if it's true, but the only reason they were able to get on the plane was because there was a doctor on board. So,
wow, intercontinental.
I'll have to ask my mom if that really is a true story.
Yeah, no kidding. And moving the whole family over with
the
baby and the baby on the way,
baby on the way,
Yeah.
and moved into Kitimat, BC in February '74.
Yeah.
And the snow up there, I think most BC people, who have been up there, or they know the area. It's just incredible the amount of snow they get there, and they didn't see the mountains or sky for what my mom, told me, for days, and they were just, what did we do here? Where do we live? And then I think they, the one day when there was a break in the weather,
Yeah.
They looked, and it's just beautiful country up there. I
Yeah.
mean, the mountains, it's basically nestled in a valley, and the mountains are just imposing. So, but
the very definition of God's country.
yes.
Yeah.
That would, when the weather's nice, it is God's country.
And growing up playing hockey right away, did you and Jason meet playing hockey?
Yeah, we met. So he was always kind of a year ahead of me in hockey. So just the age difference, just how the minor hockey system works, of course. So I would kind of see him every second year. And it wouldn't have been until after about, it's all different nowadays with how they name the divisions and stuff for minor hockey,
Sure.
but it would have been Adam.
Yep.
And into Pee Wee when I started playing rep hockey. So, we were a AA kind of rated
Yep.
town,
You're wearing the Letterman jackets. You're the
and so the big dogs.
the big dogs.
And so I guess I could have played rep in Adam, but my parents didn't let me. They weren't too sure about that, and I think one of the coaches convinced my mom and dad that hey, you should let him play rep hockey, and so I'm glad they did. So I probably would have never really met Jason then. So
was music part of your life already?
Not. I think it was. I loved to listen to music even from a young age. I didn't, and I think I got my first guitar I think my parents knew that I was musical. I mean, I think I have a couple uncles that are very musically inclined, and I would listen to music just relentlessly. Like, I mean,
What kind of stuff did you listen to?
Oh man, it varied. Honestly, like I'm sure I was influenced by what my parents were listening on the record player. I mean, they were listening to a lot of Finnish folk music, of course, but they were listening to classics. Engelbert Humperdinck, Nana Mouskouri, Beatles. All that kind of stuff that wasn't Finnish, but that old people, I guess, listen to at the time.
There's always music in the house, though.
But yeah, there was music in the house, and so I mean, that I think just when I got my first acoustic guitar, nothing fancy, and I just started playing it, and then went into band, in grade 6 and 7, and so always wanted to play guitar, so I played trumpet, and then come to grade 8, I didn't want to do band anymore because the band teacher wouldn't let me play guitar.
Oh.
And to this day, I regret it that I quit band, high school band, at grade 8, because I think I could have not that I'm not happy with where I'm at right now as a musician, but I think it would have given me more tools earlier on.
More theory, more structure when your brain is still learning.
Absolutely reading sheet music better.
Yeah.
But from a young age, I think I would say really, when I was 10, 11, 12 is when I really started to get very interested in music.
Cool.
My first record was Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. I remember.
Very cool.
And my parents weren't happy. I mean, they hid that thing when they kind of, because their English is a second language.
Sure.
But I mean, you look at the cover, and it's just four dudes that are just satanic.
And the word devil on it. Yeah.
And Shout at the Devil. And, my dad's just like, what is this garbage, And so they try and hide it on me, and, and I would find it. Sorry, Mom, So I knew where they tucked it, and so I'd secretly listen to it. And
anything that was pleasing to your ears, you went for it. You didn't put up boundaries when it came to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense, actually, watching Properman play. I mean, you could tell that the whole band doesn't seem to have any boundaries as to the influences are literally across the entire spectrum.
Yeah, I would agree. Really, we're blessed. Like, I mean, Jason and I always joke. I mean, Jason's very competent on the drums. But we always joke. We're kind of the weak link, as far as musicians, and because Travis is a monster on keys. Justin, of course, on the drums is a machine, and Nori, his bass playing and his vocals, and he's been around the block. He's played a lot, and so we're very fortunate to have these guys around us, and so we always joke that we kind of get away with it, but I mean, of course, with the songwriting, Jason taught me a lot, and and just from listening to my influences, it really, I've been happy how I've grown as a songwriter, really, like, because that was not my skill set until, I did a little bit of it, in the early days playing with Jason, with punk bands and stuff, but it wasn't until, really starting to work with him here, getting back into it is just where I just kind of learned, not only learned from him, but I just learned to trust myself too, trust how I, be confident.
Did you have the imposter syndrome as a musician? Did you?
I always do. I still do to
Really?
this day. I think that's a natural thing for anyone, really.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I have it at work. I have it up here on stage, and you're your own worst critic, of course. And
Yeah.
and I think some men are probably more sensitive to that, and which can be an issue, right?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. I want to talk about like the formation of Properman. I mean, we everybody when we say, okay, well, where did Properman come from? And really, at the end of the day, it comes down to you. They talk about how this band was started, and I love everything about the idea of friends being there for friends, and especially in this world, guys being there for guys, and how there are a lot of these things that maybe would be done over the years, as the stigma was around quietly, but never really talked about. Really, at the end of the day, Properman had a lot to do with helping you.
Well, I mean that sounds egotistical, but I know where you.
It's
I
not.
think I know where you're going with this, but yeah, no, I mean Jason. Really, before it was even Properman, really, it was I was going through a tough time and making a move, just going through a separation and going into split family situation and moving to the Okanagan, and really I was able to kind of find a place to kind of start over, so to speak. And it was nice that I was able to reconnect with Jason, because we kept in touch, of course. He's been my close friend for many, many years.
So he moved from northern BC down to
on
adventures.
Well, we did a few ventures there from Kitimat, into Vancouver and stuff. So, so it was kind of a reset, so to speak. So really, we had no intention of playing music. I didn't. It just didn't even occur to me. And then truthfully, I don't even remember why we decided to just sit down, and I think it was probably a couple too many whiskeys, and and then really it was just let's have a little jam just for old time's sake, and then really, like, right away I think there was something there the first time we kind of sat down. Oh, okay, yeah, I remember. And then I had a laptop with GarageBand on it, which is a recording software, right? So and so he also had it was a neat little unit. It's like a Roland unit that that you can record on. It's a little board, and you can record on it, mix and do all sorts of things, and so he had left this. I don't know if he manipulated it and left the unit, in the basement of this
breadcrumb.
And actually, I don't even know if that's the real story, but
sure.
I'll stick with it. Anyway, so we had the recording unit in the rental house at the winery house in Peachland there. It was a beautiful property. So he was kind enough he was doing his winery operations on that property. So the house was vacant. So I stepped in and rented it. And so, so with the split family situation, I'd have my two daughters with me every other week. So so the recording unit was down there, and so I had just one night just thought, oh, okay, I'll muck around, and I sent him something that I was quite proud of, and Jason's funny because when he doesn't like something, I know when he doesn't like something.
Yeah.
Like, that was that was a good try. He was very
encouraging in the
he's
rebuttal.
a sweetheart, but he knows how to burst your bubble in a kind of a kind way.
Yeah.
And so so we kept working on it, and he'd humor me and put he'd do vocals on it and add some keys and stuff like that, and he's very creative with that kind of stuff and we hadn't, even to that point, we didn't really know what we were doing or what direction and I think he just got I think he just had enough of me sending him garbage, so he And when I say garbage, it's like it's just not connecting with
You don't have to
either of us.
disclaim
You
it.
know
I
what I
get
mean?
it.
I was
Yeah.
proud of some of the stuff, and so
It wasn't gelling, though.
You know, and then I think he decided, you know, one night let's just get the recording, and you and I will sit. And back in the day in Glasshead, there was the old punk band in Kitimat, where we kind of did quite well with that little pop punk band. I mean, we, you know, once CBC Galaxy Award, Rising Star Award, and you know, we toured. We went to Japan, got paid to go to Japan to tour, and so.
That's a lot of adventures for an indie band.
It is, yeah. I mean, we were big in Japan. You know, that's only in a few cities, but yeah. I mean, that talk about an opportunity that you couldn't refuse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was something else, and now I've kind of lost where I was going with this story. So
No. It's good because I want to go back to something that you said before we before we continue on, because I mean, obviously things did gel, and it's grown into a direction where the two of you in that basement could probably never have even fathomed this being where you're at right now.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's thanks for jogging my memory there. So so basically we when we would kind of write with Glasshead, we'd sit down with Bacardi Lyman and Coke.
Yep.
That was, I don't know what it was.
A little bit of inspiration.
I think it was probably because it was cheaper and it had a decent taste. You know, we were lazy at the time until he became, and you know him and I became cocktail kind of gurus. Nori thinks he's pretty good with making cocktails. He's getting better. He's getting better.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. We'll tell him that. We'll let him know.
No, he's doing.
You keep
really
going, buddy.
Yeah. And so his idea was, you know what? Let's just, for old time's sake, pour us a couple of Bacardi Lymans and Coke, and have a couple of puffs of something else, you know, we just started kind of rocking out, doing our thing, and
he on drums, you on guitar at the time, or was it?
Really, it was. I think at that time, because that machine kind of had a drum machine on it.
Yep.
So it was more, you know, we'd like pass the guitar to one another.
Oh, that's
I mean,
fun.
he played guitar and sang with Glasshead, right? So so we were kind of doing that, and I think we did have the electronic drum kit down there for that night for sure.
Yep.
And then something happened, and we started writing and playing this song, and I can't remember if it was Jason and I was like, it sounds like a song that a German kid in, you know, Lederhosen would be like dancing to, and we just couldn't stop laughing. And I think, but with that kind of not mistake, but
with that direction
what came out of us that night, it just kind of, you know what, it drove to that European sound, and there was, you know, a slurring kind of British accent, you know, kind of what he was trying to put over that, and it just something. Oh my God, this is what we need to do, and we.
It brought joy. It obviously brought joy there.
And it brought out, you know, kind of our influences too, you know. With new wave, so and
you know, Depeche Mode or some of these other,
you know, The Cure, big in, you know, and after the kind of the metalhead kind of phase, like I was talking about, what I was listening to, I mean, anything that was good, so that included new wave, you know, secretly, because it was a weird thing back then, you know, and I think it is to this today for kids, you know, teenagers, like you want a certain thing to be your own, you know, and when it gets popular, you gotta not like it, right?
Oh,
Even
man,
if it's, and that was new wave for me. It was so popular.
Yep.
It was on the radio. I loved a lot of the music that was out there for new wave, and I loved a lot of the artists. And it's been a huge influence for me, you know, guitar players, you know, from, you know, Flock of Seagulls.
Yep.
And,
like Morrissey? Are you a Morrissey guy?
I respect. I didn't. Yeah, totally. I mean,
but that genre, all those.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff. You know, the Smiths.
Yeah. Oh God.
You know, Tears for Fears.
Yeah.
You know, what I learned later. You know, as I tried to progress as a better musician and a guitar player, of how underrated some of these, you know, new wave guitar players, musicians were because of how they completed a song. Not, you know, not saying metal bands were not great bands. I mean, they were individual players.
Yeah, but it's a different
process,
ballgame. Different everything. Yeah.
But new wave, and that kind of thing. What attracted me to it was, I think, it went back to the basics of layering and melody, and sounds, and how it completed a band, and it was a team effort, and that's why it's kind of stuck around as an influence to me, like the Police and all these.
Bowie.
I love Bowie, yeah, but you weren't really supposed to really like him.
Yeah,
you know?
No, I know what you're talking about. Yes, absolutely.
I
almost like a
love
little
his
secret
material. Yeah, yeah, and it's just, he was incredible.
Going to see Aerosmith, but I'm listening to Bowie.
Big influence, and U2. I mean, massive influence for me.
Yeah.
You know, the Edge, the way he was the epitome of layering and just innovation of what he did for sounds, and and he's he's a competent guitar player, 10 times the guitar player I am, and and how he revolutionized
his guitar
sound,
parts.
and how many, and to this day I'm still, it's like, God damn it sounds exactly like the Edge, but so how can I make it sound like my own? So it's incredible what I just thought they were incredibly underrated artists. Maybe at looking back at the time, it's like, so.
I want to go back to these basement sessions in Properman, what would become Properman. You talk about some of the things that you were going through. Now, I mean, I know, off camera we've even talked about how much you love your family. Your family's everything. That's but at the same time, there's a lot of guys who watch and listen to this stuff who have gone through their own version of when a family splits up and that kind of thing. And there's kind of 2 or 3 things that we go through. We go through the mechanics of what needs to happen next, adjusting to change, sometimes many times. Then there's the family aspect of what's the dynamic going to look like. How is everybody? Is it combative? Is it how emotional is it, and all that? And then many times, lastly, is, well, how am I doing? What am I going through? One of the things that Jason has talked about and whatnot is that friendship is really, really important. And starting a band when guys are going through things that are really, really tough, is one of those things that can sometimes help get people through things.
Absolutely.
For everybody, because it feels good to help, but it also is necessary to be helped, that kind of a thing. As you were going through what you were going through, what are some of the things that, on the third category, the things that you were dealing with at the time when you went through this stuff?
I think, you automatically, kind of the first things you think about is, how is this going to affect the kids? If there's guilt, there's, what could I have done different, to not go into this situation, so, I mean, it's almost like a grieving process. I mean, like you hit it perfectly. I mean, there's different kind of phases. And you really need to rely on the people that that you care about, and not be afraid to rely on people like that. And so,
easier said than done.
It is. It really is.
Like, was that hard for you to even reach out, or did you internalize a lot of this stuff, or did you reach out? I mean, did you know that automatically that you needed somebody to reach out to help?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, the first people really, obviously, would be like my mom and stuff like that. So, but of course, there's that, even having, getting the nerve to tell
hesitation.
her.
There's hesitation
like,
there.
Oh my
even.
God, I've she's going to be disappointed, but she was very supportive, and
the fear usually is worse than the.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, and then then reaching out to friends to tell, and then how do you bring this news out so that it's not found out on Facebook, like something awkward like that. So so it's hard, but you have to do it. Like, I mean, I just looked at it more. I just, this is something I need to do, and I need to deal with it. And like growing up you know, in my kind of family situation, but with my father and my mother, you know, very, very traditional, you know, stay-at-home mom, and, you know, dad works 9 to 5, you know, supper's on the table. And so it's, and great values were given to my brother and I, but it's also, you know, there's things like, you know, stiff upper lip, you know, like, you know, be, you know, you
just man up, just deal with it.
You know, you've got to deal with it. And so,
Push it down.
I think the concept is, yeah, I know what they're saying, but I don't think there was that, you know, the knowledge of how important really it is to kind of reach out and ask for help when you need help, because, you know, man up could mean so many different things, right? And manning up, in my opinion, would be, not afraid to be vulnerable, not afraid to ask for help, and just, you know, and be that supportive person to somebody who needs that help too, and know when to ask for help. And it's a difficult thing, and it's
As with we haven't talked about this aspect of he changed it yet, but that's something that we've talked about. I mean, gosh, it's about 4th or 5th episode that we've put out. He changed it. We want to change the world. That's what the team wants to do, and wants to make men's mental wellness something that can be easily brought out into the light, with no stigma and nothing attached to it. One of the things that we as a group want to do is take back the phrase "man up," and literally make it the definition that you just talked about. That manning up is, here's what I'm going through, and here's what we're going to do about it, and having it to be a phrase that includes vulnerability right from the get-go. Not the stiff upper lip part, the traditional definition of, or stigmatized version of what man up might be. And it's just so cool to hear you just even organically say that. Clearly that is something that has come to you from learning.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you ask Jason for help, or did he see that his friend needed help?
You know, we're both kind of the same. We don't, literally, we could sit in his basement bar and not say a single friggin' thing to one another and just be content. You know, I mean, we just, but I think we just both knew, because he went through a similar thing many years ago, and so he understood. He understood how hard it is, and how you need to lean on people, and he did lean on people, and I'm glad he did, because it just gets you through the process. I don't want to say easier, but I mean, it just makes it. It's a process, right? So it's not, and it's never going to be a perfect process, but he just knew, and I think music was kind of our out, and then really, and then as the band started to, you know, to develop, like really, like you said, everyone's got their situation, whether, you know, with family life or friends, and we're all blessed and fortunate to be, you know, be able to do this in a place like this. Have our own jam spot, really. Make music as a hobby and as a passion, and, you know, live out our midlife crisis like this. You know, I mean, Justin's the young guy, but, you know, he's still got a partner, he's still got a family.
Absolutely.
So I think the way we approach this band is why it's been successful, is because we do rely and lean on one another and each other's families, and we've made it, you know, kind of I've got my girlfriend, wife, partner, whatever you want to call it. You know, I consider her my wife. You know, but, you know, we've got our wives' pictures on the wall here, and, you know, and how we've built this band is on really family and friends, and making it accessible to myself and my partner Angela, and, you know, to our kids, and, you know, I think that's why it's been successful, because I think I said it before, it's a family oriented.
I love that,
you know. And,
yes. Well, and I mean, the cool thing about this is when you guys talk, you guys are a family, you guys are a brotherhood. But then that brotherhood, your families come first.
Absolutely.
More than anything. And you guys are intrinsically there for each other. If one of you, like we talk about Nori and what he went through with
Yeah.
his wife, and
Yeah.
and how you guys were there
Yeah.
for him when that was happening, and how you, and it's almost ironic in a sense that, you know, Jason goes through something in his life, sees you going through something in your life. Okay, let's bring music to it. Music can be an outlet for us. It can be a gateway to us expressing our friendship, our past with each other, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Clearly, though, as Properman develops, completely different than the previous band because
Yeah.
of these things that you have learned along the way,
Yeah.
and taken these lessons and literally instilled them into the thing that you use as this outlet, as this creative outlet, as this. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, you have a job that I think is extremely important, and it's one that helps serve the greater community. You work for the, you know, environment.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if that is not your passion, if that's not the thing that brings you all that joy, you need to find other things in your life. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think every guy out there who's working somewhere that doesn't necessarily fill their cup needs to find something that fills your
Absolutely.
cup.
Yeah.
And that's what Properman seems to. Again, you know, this thing, it writes itself. The band is titled Properman.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
and it
know.
seems like what you guys are doing is to help keep you be proper men.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly it. And I think that's the title "Proper Man" really is like, you know, how can we be or help others be the best man that you can be? I mean, and it sounds like a cheesy slogan, but really that's kind of the influences, you know. Yeah, like.
Do you remember where the name came from? I haven't asked that question yet.
Truthfully, I'm sure Jason somehow made it up. Goodness, I wish I remember that one. I'm sorry,
but no, don't be.
Because I'm sure there's a really good story behind that.
Yeah,
there has to be, but no, really,
But it's not just the name of a band. It's an attitude.
And
really.
and really I think the genesis of it really is from that portrayal of being a gentleman, you know, having, you know, dressing smartly, you know, just being nice to women, you know, being nice to your kid, being a family man, you know, that's being good to the community, you know, bringing back to the community. I think that's really, I think, where, you know, Proper Man, you know, that's where that name really, I think, came from.
It's an attitude. It really is. And when you see you on stage, and make no mistake, you guys rock, but you do it kindly. Like, I mean,
yeah, we try to. I mean, we do slip up on the swear words at once.
Oh, no. I don't think that's. I think you can still swear kindly.
No, I know, and I'm joking, but yeah, really, nothing, you know, makes us happier than seeing, you know, people really enjoying it. And I think what the band has done, what I've heard the feedback, is it takes people back too, you know, like it takes, you know, men back, or, you know, and it takes, you know, takes you back to a spot, you know, where nostalgia. I'm sure Jason's going to use that word.
I'm certain he will.
And that's what, you know, that's what it's all about, having a good time. And
I want to talk about the character. You know, that some people in the band, they look at their role as a total character. You know, and you know, Nori being Slim Pickens. You know, Justin being Killer. What's your character?
29, and really, it's a silly story. It really is. We were getting fitted for suits, and you know, we were in the
We as being the band.
the band, yeah.
Yep.
So we were
Yep.
getting fitted for proper suits, you
Yep.
know, and so it came to my turn, and I said, yeah, well, my pant size is 29, so that's. I'm sorry. I wish it was you know, more interesting or funnier than that.
No, but I want to
really,
know the difference between 29 and Petri. Like, what's the difference?
honestly,
29?
29. I really don't have. I can't really distinguish Petri from 29, except 29 is up on stage here. I still try, 29 still tries to be Petri, and Petri tries to be 29. I get to potentially throw out my back every once in a while I'm up here, like, but and really I throw out my hips and my ankles and stuff running with Angela,
Yep.
my wife, and so I honestly I don't have
You see them being the same. Your authentic self is the guy that's up here playing.
I dress really nice up here,
Yeah.
and I try and dress up nice when I'm out,
Yeah.
being Petri, but oddly enough, sometimes, and it can vary. Sometimes I feel more comfortable being Petri out there. Sometimes I feel more comfortable being 29 up here.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
I don't know. Yeah, there is no credible story to say that 29 and Petri is different.
This is the credible story. The credible story that you come up here and
Yeah.
the idea that, and I mean the journey that you've been on, the things that you've gone through.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that authenticity is extremely important to you, and everything that you do, including the releases, the releases that you do, music being kind of a chief one for you, obviously.
Yeah.
You're the same guy, and that's something that you've learned. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's
Yeah.
that's the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, I try like to this day, like lessons learned from where I was when I moved here to where I am now in a better place and happy and always working on myself. I'm
How do you work with yourself?
well, I mean, this band
Yep.
with my wife.
Yep.
She challenges me. She's a great woman. I think exercise is important
Yep.
for not only physical but mental health, and to be able to balance things and keep your body and your mind in a good place.
Yep.
Or it helps you. I think there's a foundation there. Physical activity makes you feel better about yourself. I feel, and I'm not trying to pitch
No.
a lifestyle here. But
No.
I think one thing I've learned is that's helped me as a stress relief. It's helped me to be able to do this. It's helped me, because when I'm getting into this age, I'm feeling it's only natural to start feeling about, thinking about your mortality. And, my father passed away at an early age at 56. I'm
young.
50 now.
Oh, that's
So
young. Yeah.
I'm cognizant of, what, not a fear, but that's.
No, but cognizant,
that's-
I think, is a
I'm
good word.
cognizant
You're aware.
of, I don't want to be gone yet, at 56. I feel like I have a lot more to do and explore and just, yeah. So, yeah.
I appreciate that you're able to kind of share some of these lessons. Clearly, again, it's a theme. Jason went through lessons, saw you. Your friendship brought you through lessons, brought you to the place that you all are now. You're all taking these lessons and using them and expressing them in such a positive way. What are some of the songs that you guys have written that that are close to your heart that you're really proud of?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's so many, Mike. I mean, I literally have hundreds of songs that, are, archived on my MacBook, and,
Yeah.
and he's probably got hundreds on his Roland Tascam, that
Yep.
unit that,
Yeah.
and we still use that to this day. I'll send him something. Honestly, I'm really, honestly, I think I'm probably proud. It's not necessarily my favorite song, but
Yeah.
I'm proud of Pub Night. That's one of the
that's a
first.
great
It's
song.
one of the first songs that we, as a, that we came up with, and it's the one that's still in our arsenal, so to speak.
Yep.
And it's kind of stood the test of time for us.
Yeah.
There's so many. There's so
Good
many
video for that
songs.
song, right?
Yeah, and
Norrie's house. Was that
Pub
one?
Night. That was Pub Night. No, that was that. That one had various clips.
Oh, okay. I thought there was
yeah.
one shot at Nori's house. It was basically
That was
a
I
hard
Drink.
party.
Yeah,
Oh, that was I Drink.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
That's a
Yeah,
great
we
song.
filmed that at Nori's, and so that's a special one too, because that was our kind of our second jam space was in Slim's Slim and Kristen's basement there.
Yep.
So he kind of built a bar so we thought we'd have this alternate between Jason's old bar stage area and Slim's place.
Well, there's a theme. The idea, pub night, I Drink, Broken Hearts
Booze.
Club,
Booze and bars, right? No.
and getting together and friendship though, and
Yeah.
and that's really camaraderie.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is what you guys are all about. Tell me about Bloodless.
Bloodless is, you know what? Bloodless is, I love that song.
Yep.
And I love playing it. And I'm going to tell you a couple reasons why, because I didn't write a single lick in that song.
You're kidding.
No, and I love it because it's like playing a cover song, but it's being, for me to be able to play it when somebody else has written the parts
Yeah.
has been a treat, because and how that song grew, and I didn't have to do a single recording session. I'm lazy. So that's kind of fun.
How about you're busy?
Yeah, no,
Because you are that too.
And literally, like Travis had written that song
Yeah.
with Jason,
Yeah.
and the guitar parts, what you hear on that track when we do release it,
Yeah.
it's all Travis's tracks. And when he sent me the song, hey man, do you mind doing your parts for this? And I told him, Travis, nothing needs to be done. Like you've captured what's needed in this song.
Yeah.
So I love that song, and we've already played it live a couple times now, and I enjoy it. And it's a different direction, right? It really is a different type of song for Properman,
Yeah.
because it is it's an anthem. I for definition, like an anthem being big,
Yeah.
being explosive and powerful. That's how I would describe it. Whereas our other material that Jason and I have written have been more on the kind of new wavy,
Yeah.
kind of the I guess the, what do you call, the bread and butter Properman stuff.
Sure.
And same with the other new song is a little bit more edgier, right?
Yeah.
So, but Bloodless is a great song, and I think it captures some interesting stuff for the band, but also for Jason, for Norm, because there's some hard work there for him, and he put his heart out on some of that, on those vocal lines, and the way he's projecting it out. So I was proud of him.
I would submit physically and mentally, he's putting a lot of stuff
Oh
out
my
there.
goodness, yeah.
It's
It's almost funny. It's not funny to watch him on stage, but you can tell it takes a lot out of him.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult song to open a set with, and that's what we've decided to do.
Yeah. Well, and the
So
writing.
kudos to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the writing of it too. I mean, it's I think to get something like that, it takes a lot to get something like that.
Oh,
And-
absolutely.
and-
And I think you'll learn from Travis, probably Travis and Jason, more of what went into that and what,
Yeah.
But it just goes to show and prove that this band, this brotherhood, like anyone's allowed to bring something to the table, you know, and we all respect one another enough as human beings and as musicians that we just trust in the process, and we trust in ourselves. So it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna ask one last question.
Sure.
I assume the family split, toughest thing you've ever gone through?
It
Up there?
it's up. Oh yeah, absolutely. The death of my father. Death.
Yeah.
Of friend. Of course, it's up there. It's a life changing event. Yeah, for sure.
you know, if you said this yourself, one of the first things that happens when you go through something or something that's happening is you start second guessing, what could I have done differently, that sort of thing. You've got a lot of time now where there's been healing and reflection, and obviously you're in a very different place now than you were then. If there was a couple pieces of advice you could give to yourself back then, what would they be?
You know what? Really, it's be kind to yourself sooner. You know, and really.
So don't beat yourself up.
Exactly, and I know it's hard. Yeah, it's natural to feel guilty, and it's natural to feel like a failure. It's natural, but you know, because you originally asked, like, you know, through that process, what was one of the things that you learned, and that is, if there's any way you can try and be, you know, good to yourself, and don't forget about yourself, you know, and you know, my partner, she's said, I you know, if you're not okay, you know, I'm not okay. You know, like, you first have to be in a good place. You have to be happy before anyone else around you can be happy, or I don't know if that makes
Self-love.
sense.
No, it
Yeah,
does. It's the airplane analogy. I think in many times, you know, if you're flying with your child, if the cabin depressurizes, whose mask do you put on first? You put yours on first.
It's not to be selfish.
So if that's what you're saying,
to be more effective and to be able to, exactly. I think that's a really good analogy, actually. And
yeah.
And
you don't sacrifice yourself for everybody else because there's nothing left, and you can't. That's a one-time thing.
Just take it easy on yourself. Be good to yourself, and you know, don't be afraid to lean on your friends and family. Honestly, you have to do it.
Those two things you said are some of the easiest things in the world, but they're also the things that we either dismiss so quickly. Like when you say be good to yourself, there's so many guys that are going through stuff that don't take what you just said and internalize it. Like, ask yourself the question, am I being good to myself? What could I do to be good to myself? But we don't do it. And I just think it's really powerful. It may sound simple or easy, and it is simple, but it's not necessarily easy because of all the things.
I think it's a built stigma.
Yeah.
Especially for men. I think it's, you know, you've got to be, you know, the old thought is you've got to be that provider. You've got to make everything okay, and you've got to fix things.
Yeah.
If you can't fix yourself, or you can't, you know, put yourself in a place where you you can be happy, it's a lost cause. And sorry, my train of thought once again.
Are you kidding me? No, there's no. That's bang on. Like, no, it's.
There was another point I was trying to make with the other aspect. So you had
friends with reaching out.
Not
necessarily,
and
but being
exactly.
willing to,
You've got to internalize that and don't look weak. You know, and that's the old kind of
stigma.
thought and stigma is that asking for help is, you know, is a sign of weakness, and which is actually, in my opinion, the opposite. You know,
it is. You're right. So, it's a sign of strength.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's easy to say, hard to do. But the reason that I think that it's so cool talking about this with you guys is these are the messages that keep coming through. All of you clearly all kind of believe in this because you are this for each other, right? You just kind of built it into what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And the first time that you do it, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
And you realize, oh, wait a second, this is a real piece of truth that has power attached to it. So just, you know, as through this conversation, I just want to encourage any guy that's out there that's going through something. The hardest time to reach out and ask for help is the first time. But once you realize it's an actual pathway to moving forward, and to getting out of the situation that you're in, move to that. Make that the first thing that you do. Don't do it when you have to do it, right? Like,
it seems like a monumental task, but you're right. And the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can be better to yourself. You know, the more easier the rest of the process, or the process will kind of work its way through. You know?
We at Heat Change are just really so excited to have you guys talk a little bit about what this entire Heat Change movement is about, and be a part of this. Thank you so much for taking time to bare your soul a little bit and talk to us about this. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and
Last-
and thank you. And I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. And when we talked earlier on about the concept, and you know, he changed. I was 100% on board, and know what you're doing. I hope, and I know it will help men out there and people. So
Absolutely. Lastly, before we go, what is Properman to you?
oh my goodness, why would you see? He said there was going to be no like off the cuff, on your toes. Yeah, keeping me on my toes. Oh my goodness. What is Properman to me? My goodness. I honestly, I'm trying to think of something so profound and so witty, and nothing's coming. But the first word that's coming to me is brotherhood. Really, it is for this as a band. It's a brotherhood, and we've talked ad nauseum about it today, and how we just rely on one another, how we get to do our passion together, get to share our struggles, our triumphs together, get to make people happy together, you know, and we get to do these kind of cool things together, you know, and I think it just, yeah, it's cool to be thought of as a unit, and as a you know, as a Properman concept, because the concept is brotherhood, being good to ourselves, being good to other people, you know, your families, and so.
Hey, guess what? You didn't think that you said something profound. Guess what the truth is? That's awesome.
Jeez.
And it is a brotherhood, and it's so evident.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being part of this today.
Appreciate it, Mike.
And we'll see you on stage.
Yeah.